What a turnaround at North Carolina, and it's still heading uphill thanks to Mack Brown and all his efforts. Sam Howell having something to do with it, I believe, as well. We got Blaine Gilmer on the line from Recruiting Every Second. Emphasis in capital letters on the SEC right there, but North Carolina, the way they're working out things, look much like an SEC power right now. Blaine, how you doing tonight?
Fantastic. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Mack Brown inherited a program that won 5 games in the previous 2 seasons. The program has shown itself capable in the right hands, and Mack Brown were exactly those hands a couple decades ago of being able to win consistently 9, 10, 11 games. But that had been a while since that was accomplished. He comes into the fold 6 years away from the business, is able to gain his mojo, and really is building an ACC power that showed on the offensive side of the ball that they were ready up to one of the best in the nation last year. And of course, it all starts with recruiting and building that wealth of talent. And it just continues on and on and on. So anybody that's going to check out, whether it be Rivals, 247, whatever your favorite service, isn't necessarily going to be impressed with the recruiting rankings right now. 10 hard commits, but the 14th ranked class last season in that 2021 class, and off to a great start with some inroads to acquiring some of the best players in the South very soon.
Absolutely. And it's just something that you see that has changed so much for North Carolina in terms of who they are having an opportunity to bring in to that program under Mack Brown. It's something that, these programs in the ACC oftentimes have to play, second fiddle, so to speak, to a lot of these SEC programs, but not North Carolina. There's, in fact, been many cases currently in this class of 2022, and then, of course, in the class of 2021, as you mentioned, they ranked 3rd in the ACC. But Mark, like you said, that was coming off, some not so great seasons before, and now Mack Brown has got his stamp clearly on that program, and prospects are taking notice. They believe in, the proven track record of Mack Brown and also his coaching staff. Mack Brown has brought on some tremendous recruiters and some tremendous on-field tacticians. You bring on a former player and a coach now like Dre Bly. Dre Bly was instrumental and maybe even the reason that Tony Grimes, who's one of the best defensive backs in the country, that went his senior season last year, Mark, and played at North Carolina. He reclassified. He was supposed to be playing as a senior in high school, graduated the summer before what was supposed to be his senior year, and played for University of North Carolina. Now he's going to be one of the best defensive backs in the country. So young stars like Tony Grimes, and also you mentioned Sam Howell on the offensive side of the ball, those kind of guys have these prospects seeing what they're doing at North Carolina excited. And, we'll get in, I'm sure, to some of these targets and things like that. But that's what you're seeing with Mack Brown, with Dre Bly, with Coach Stacy Searles on the offensive line, former at Georgia, John Lilly, tight end coach, former at Georgia. You also have Tim Cross, who's been a phenomenal recruiter up at Minnesota. So a lot of experience on that staff.
Yeah, Blaine, it's been a situation in the SEC where the top powers, Alabama, LSU in particular, Georgia, of course, a top 3 to 5 mainstay in the recruiting battles in the rankings, run into Clemson now all the time. Clemson over the last 7, 8, 10 years has become that team from the ACC is the one representative. Miami jumps out there from time to time. Florida State used to, maybe making a move once again under Mike Norvell. And of course, Miami and Florida State, much of it has to do where they're located. So even if they're down, they're going to get a look. But Clemson's been that one power from outside the conference that has invaded Ohio State from the north. But as we keep it between the SEC and the ACC, but now North Carolina kind of moving in as well to be a factor in the decision-making process as some of the top SEC recruits.
Well, you mentioned Georgia specifically right there, and Travis Shaw and Andre Green Jr. are two of the biggest examples of this. North Carolina and Georgia are the top two schools for both of those players. I mean, these are young men. One, Andre Green Jr. out of the Maryland area, and then Travis Shaw is a North Carolina prospect himself. And North Carolina doing a great job of trying to keep him in state. It is a tooth and nail battle right now with Georgia and North Carolina. Dalen Everett at IMG Academy, he is making his decision on the 17th. So just a day or two from now, Dalen Everett's making his decision. Georgia, Clemson, and North Carolina are the three right there in there. As you mentioned, used to, that would probably be a Georgia-Clemson battle. Now North Carolina heavily involved. Dre Bly's made a world of difference there with Dalen Everett. And then even a running back like George Pettaway. You're looking at North Carolina competing in there with Auburn, with Florida, with Michigan, schools like that. So George Pettaway was somebody who got a look from Alabama before. And then lastly, Mark, when you talk about offensive line, everything starts up front in the trenches when you're talking about building a program, getting success. Addison Nichols, who is from the heart of Georgia, just put out a top 3, and Tennessee and North Carolina, Ohio State made it over the University of Georgia. So everybody kind of expected it to be Tennessee, Ohio State, and Georgia. North Carolina bumps Georgia out of that top 3. So they're definitely making some moves with some ACC targets.
Yeah, people across the nation that just want to see a different look to the national map, and specifically in the ACC. And I guess that was a Freudian slip there. MAC. Want to see Mack Brown in North Carolina take that extra step in the ACC this year and upset Clemson in the ACC championship game. And they certainly have the quarterback to do it. A talented defense that didn't achieve well in regards to scoring defense, but they've got 10 starters back. They should be fortified on defense. They lost 2 of the best running backs in the nation and their top 2 receivers, but they've recruited well enough again to bring in the guys that they believe can complement Sam Howell on offense. So it's intriguing to see again what Mack Brown's been able to do. He certainly hasn't lost his fastball. A lot of people question that hire as, okay, well, here's a guy that used to be good. He's been away from the game for 6 years. He's an old guy. What's he going to be able to bring? And I got to tell you, I checked out the North Carolina spring game, Blaine, and the thing is it almost had a Clemson kind of feel to it, as kind of a new school feel that Mack Brown's an old guy, but he's been able to acclimate to the young athletes and connect with them. And it's this great combination of, when you come here, you know you're going to work hard. We're playing for championships. We're taking this seriously, but at the same time, we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to have a good time, and we're a family. We're building that kind of atmosphere, and it's obviously made a statement and really resonated with a lot of athletes.
Undoubtedly. And Mack Brown's doing literally everything he can to capture momentum. There's a rule that if you're on an unofficial visit, you can't go more than a mile off campus and still be with campus personnel, university personnel. So what did Mack Brown do? Him and his wife bought a house like 0.9 miles from the center of campus so that prospects can come over to their home on an unofficial visit. So Mack Brown, he's finding every rule and he's taking advantage of it. But you talk about the class of 2021 and that defense that Sam Howell now has to support him. There's going to be some key prospects from this past class in 2021. Keyshawn Silver, who was a five-star defensive lineman. Also, Renaria Dilworth. You talk about beating out SEC schools. Renaria Dilworth was a school that Georgia was a prospect that Georgia was very high on. And then Javari Ritzy, same thing. So these are prospects that as true freshmen could end up making an impact, at least on special teams and depth, if not working their way at some point into the starting lineup for North Carolina. So North Carolina has the pieces there on defense, and I think they will be everybody talks about the Georgia-Clemson game. The North Carolina-Clemson game is going to be just as much of a battle, in my opinion.
Yeah, the North Carolina Clemson game. If we get to see a North Carolina Clemson game, of course, North
Which
Carolina's
everybody's assuming.
got to win the division, got to win the Coastal Division. Miami, North Carolina is probably the key game in that race, but North Carolina playing that game at home against Miami certainly trounced the Canes last year, and are pretty well placed in everybody's top 10 preseason right now as the favorite to get that done and face Clemson and try to bring down Clemson. For the first time in 2014, this would be a different team in the ACC winning that conference after Clemson has ripped off all these championships. And again, it would be nice for a lot of people to see some new blood in the college football playoff. We got Blaine Gilmer on the line. You see his Twitter handle right there, at bgilmer18. I advise you to head on over there, join him on Twitter, follow him, check it out often, because he'll have some recruiting news, some tips, some leads on a ton of guys all the time. Every time I bring him on here, he lays it out in regards to, okay, Mark, this is what's coming up this weekend. Boom, bam, on down the line. This is what we can expect, and always comes through for us. Recruiting Every Second is the podcast, and they can pretty much catch that, Blaine, on any of the audio platforms.
Yeah, just search Recruiting Every Second on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify in particular. Also, you could just Google it and the Art19 feed will come up as well. You can also follow it on Twitter using @recruiting_SEC. But there's a lot of overlap. Like I said, for ACC and North Carolina Clemson fans, anybody listening to this, there's a lot of overlap, as I mentioned, with these prospects. So try to give as much insight as I can over there on Recruiting Every Second. I'm also a writer for UGAsports.com, the Rivals affiliate, the Georgia Rivals affiliate. So talk to a lot of these prospects, a lot of people involved with these prospects. So a lot of insight that we try to bring over there, and I would appreciate you heading over there and listening.
And it's one of the big reasons why that right now the Big Ten's, I think most people would consider the second best conference in college football. And when it comes to money, right there neck and neck with the SEC, those two conferences completely rule the sport from a financial standpoint. We're talking like a $25 million gap per team between the SEC and the Big Ten and everybody else. But I say that because of what Blaine just outlined in regards to a recruiting footprint. Where the players are is where the ACC's got an opportunity if North Carolina can join Clemson. If Miami and Florida State can become what the potential is there, that they could become a great conference in football, the potential is there. The players are right there. They're right in the footprint to get it done. And North Carolina is certainly a big part of it. Blaine, we appreciate you stopping by as always.
No problem. Thank you so much, Mark.